Many of us ask Allah for rizq, we raise our hands, we make dua, we hope for ease, for openings, for relief. But my brothers and sisters, Allah has already given us something priceless every single day, and most of us walk straight past it. Allah gives you a window every morning, a quiet window, a clean window, a window filled with barakah, and you ignore it. Not because you are evil, not because you are lazy, but because you do not realize what you are standing inside. The first moments after Fajr are not ordinary time. They are time Allah has honored. And what you do with them speaks louder than what you ask for later. One Fajr is not the end, it is the beginning. Many people think Fajr is a task, something to complete, something to tick off so guilt can be avoided and the day can continue. They wake up tired, they rush to make wuhtu, they stand, pray, say salam. And the very second the prayer ends, their heart leaves the room. Their hands go to the phone. Their mind jumps to work, stress, money, people, problems. Their body stays on the prayer mat, but their attention is already gone. This is one of the most common spiritual mistakes Muslims make, and it is rarely spoken about clearly. Fajr was never meant to be the finish line. It was never meant to be the moment you escape from Allah back into life. Fajr is the opening door. It is the moment Allah pulls you out of sleep, out of unconsciousness, out of distraction, and places you in a state of awareness before the world wakes up. When Allah wakes you for Fajr, He is not just calling you to pray. He is calling you to alignment of body, alignment of mind, alignment of heart. Think about it carefully. Your body is awake when most people are still unconscious. Your soul is clean because you just stood before Allah. Your heart is softer than it will be at any other point in the day. Later in the day, the heart hardens. Stress piles up. Conversations drain you. Noise fills your mind. Decisions exhaust your focus. But after Fajr, none of that has happened yet. That moment is pure, and purity is rare. This is why the early morning carries weight in Islam. Not because of superstition, not because of culture, because of human psychology and spiritual reality. When the Prophet ﷺ made dua for barakah in the early morning, it was not random timing, it was wisdom. Barakah is not just about quantity, it is about flow. A day that begins misaligned feels heavy even if nothing goes wrong. A day that begins aligned feels manageable even when problems appear. Most people are confused about why their days feel tight, rushed, and unproductive. They think the problem is lack of sleep, or lack of motivation, or lack of discipline. But often, the real problem is that they treat the most powerful moment of the day like an inconvenience. They meet Allah, then immediately abandon the meeting. Imagine this. You are invited into the presence of someone powerful, someone who controls doors, timing, and outcomes. You stand there, speak briefly, and then without pause, you turn your back and rush away. Not because you are needed elsewhere urgently, but because you are distracted. What message does that send? This is not about Allah needing you to stay. Allah does not need anything. This is about what staying does to you. If you treat Fajr as an obligation only, you miss its power. You reduce it to a ritual instead of a reset. Fajr is Allah giving you a head start over your own distractions. Before the world speaks to you, Allah speaks to you. Before your phone demands attention, Allah grants you attention. Before people define your worth, Allah reminds you who you are. But if you rush away, you hand that advantage back. You let the world set the tone. You let urgency replace intention. You let noise replace clarity. And then you wonder why the day controls you instead of the other way around. Here is what most people don't realize. You don't need to do something dramatic after Fajr. You don't need long recitations. You don't need complicated routines. You need presence. Even a few minutes of staying still after prayer changes how the mind behaves. It tells your nervous system that you are not being chased. It tells your heart that it is safe. It tells your soul that it has priority. From that state, decisions are calmer, reactions are slower, mistakes are fewer. This is how spiritual alignment turns into worldly ease without you noticing the connection. People think barakah arrives suddenly. In reality, it accumulates quietly. It shows up as fewer arguments, better timing, clearer judgment, unexpected ease. And all of that traces back to how you began the day. Fajr is not meant to be a spiritual transaction. Pray and leave. It is meant to be a transition from sleep to awareness, from chaos to order, from ego to surrender. If you rush through the transition, you carry the chaos with you. But if you respect it, something settles inside you. That settled state becomes the foundation of the day. And that is why Fajr is not the end. It is the beginning of how your life moves for the next 24 hours. Ignore that beginning and the day feels scattered. Honor it and the day quietly aligns itself around you. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become ready. Too rizq descends. It is not chased. Most people believe rizq comes from speed, from pressure, from constant movement. They wake up already anxious. They rush their mornings. They speak quickly. They think quickly. They move as if something is always about to be lost. And then they wonder why their chest feels tight and their mind never rests. Rizq was never designed to be hunted like prey. Rizq descends. Allah did not tell us to run ourselves into exhaustion to earn provision. He told us to trust Him while taking the means with balance. There is a difference. Chasing comes from fear. Receiving comes from alignment. When you chase rizq, your heart is tense. When you receive rizq, your heart is open, and an open heart receives more than a frantic one, even with fewer actions. This is why the early morning matters so much. After Fajr, your heart is naturally calmer. Your ego is quieter. Your mind has not yet been flooded with comparisons, expectations, and pressure. That calm state is not accidental. It is the state in which provision is meant to be received. But most people interrupt it immediately. They inject urgency into a moment Allah made spacious. They inject noise into a moment Allah made quiet. They inject fear into a moment Allah made safe. And then they wonder why everything feels blocked. Understand this clearly. Rizq does not only mean money. If rizq were only money, many sinful people would be the most fulfilled. But they are not. Rizq includes peace in your chest. It includes clarity in your decisions. It includes energy that lasts. It includes people who help instead of drain you. It includes doors opening at the right time instead of forcing the wrong ones. These things cannot be chased. They arrive when the heart is in the right condition. The early morning creates that condition naturally. That is why people who protect their mornings often feel like life flows better for them, even if they cannot explain why. They say things like, I don't know how, but things work out. I feel calmer even when things go wrong. I make fewer mistakes than I used to. This is not magic. This is what happens when a person stops demanding from the day and starts receiving from it. When you rush after Fajr, you are telling your soul that it is late. Late for what? Late for dunya. You are training your heart to believe that the world is urgent and Allah can wait. That belief does something dangerous inside you. It creates internal pressure before life has even applied any. So when real problems come later, you are already depleted. But when you allow yourself to settle after Fajr, even briefly, you reverse that training. You tell your heart, Allah comes first, the world can wait. And something powerful happens when that becomes your default state. You stop overreacting. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop burning energy on things you cannot control. From the outside, it looks like you are doing less. In reality, you are wasting less. This is why rizq descends. Because nothing blocks it more than desperation. A desperate heart grabs. A calm heart receives. And the calmest your heart will be all day is right after Fajr if you do not disturb it. People misunderstand effort in Islam. Effort does not mean panic. Effort does not mean obsession. Effort does not mean carrying tomorrow's worries today. True effort is movement without inner resistance. And that kind of movement is only possible when the heart begins the day settled. This is why some people work endlessly and feel empty, while others work steadily and feel fulfilled. One is chasing, the other is receiving. The tragedy is that many people ask Allah for rizq with their tongues, but block it with their behavior. They ask for ease, then start the day in tension. They ask for clarity, then flood the mind with noise. They ask for barakah, then disrespect the most blessed time of the day. This is not punishment, it is misalignment. Allah does not need to withhold rizq to teach you. Often, He simply allows you to exhaust yourself until you notice the pattern. And the pattern is always the same. When the morning is rushed, the day feels heavy. When the morning is grounded, the day feels guided. You do not need to escape effort to receive rizq. You need to escape panic. And the easiest place to do that is right after Fajr. Sit, breathe. Remember Allah without asking for anything immediately. Let your heart settle before you send it into the world. Because rizq is not impressed by speed, it is attracted to alignment. And Allah sends provision to hearts that are ready to carry it without breaking. 3 barakah is sensitive to how you treat time. Most people believe time is just time. 60 minutes is 60 minutes. An hour is an hour. They think barakah is something added later as a bonus, separate from how time itself is treated. That assumption is wrong. In Islam, time is not neutral. Some time carries weight. Some time carries doors. Some time carries multiplication. And some time, when disrespected, quietly loses its blessing. Barakah is not loud. It does not announce when it enters. And it does not warn you when it leaves. That is why people are confused. They say, I work hard, but nothing sticks. I earn, but it disappears. I try, but everything feels tight. They assume the problem is effort, income, or circumstances. Often, the real issue is much simpler and far more subtle. Barakah was drained long before the day even began. The first 30 minutes after Fajr are not just early. They are protected time. Protected from noise, protected from demands, protected from comparison. Allah created the world in a way that mornings set momentum. Just like a body that starts the day tense stays tense longer, a day that begins rushed stays heavy. Barakah responds to treatment. When you rush sacred time, you flatten it. When you disrespect honored time, you empty it. This is not about punishment, it is about consequence. Think about it logically. If you pour clean water into a cracked container, the problem is not the water, it is the container. Barakah works the same way. The early morning gives you a container with no cracks yet, no interruptions, no emotional leaks, no mental clutter. But the moment you fill that container with noise, scrolling, complaints, or panic, cracks form. And whatever Allah pours later leaks out. That is why people can pray, work, plan, and still feel like nothing multiplies. They are pouring blessing into a container they damaged at the start of the day. Most people don't notice this because barakah doesn't disappear dramatically. It disappears quietly. You still get paid, but expenses rise. You still succeed, but peace shrinks. You still move forward, but joy doesn't follow. And because nothing obvious breaks, you never think to examine the morning. You blame life. You blame people. You blame stress. Rarely do you blame how you treated time Allah honored. The Prophet ﷺ didn't ask for barakah randomly. He asked for it in the early morning. That alone should make you pause. Why that time? Because barakah multiplies what already exists. If the foundation is calm, barakah amplifies calm. If the foundation is rushed, barakah has nothing stable to sit on. This is why 2 people can wake up at the same time, pray the same prayer, work the same hours, and live completely different realities. One respected the opening moments, the other invaded them with urgency. Barakah is sensitive to intention, but it is also sensitive to behavior. You cannot treat time like it is cheap and expect Allah to make it rich. When you immediately fill the morning with dunya, you are making a statement even if you don't say it out loud. This matters more than what just happened. And that statement shapes your internal state for hours. Your nervous system doesn't forget it. Your heart doesn't ignore it. From that point on, the day is reactive. You respond instead of choose. You rush instead of decide. You feel behind even when nothing has gone wrong. That feeling of being behind is one of the biggest barakah killers. Because a heart that feels behind cannot appreciate what it has. And appreciation is one of the doors through which barakah stays. People think barakah comes from doing more. In reality, barakah comes from disturbing less, especially early. Even silence after Fajr is not empty time. It is stabilizing time. When you sit quietly, even for a few minutes, you are teaching your system that the day is not an emergency. That single lesson changes everything. Your speech becomes measured. Your reactions soften, your decisions improve. From the outside, nothing spiritual seems to be happening. Inside, alignment is being restored. This is why the righteous guarded their mornings fiercely. Not because they were lazy, not because they avoided responsibility, because they understood something most people miss. If the morning is right, the rest of the day requires less correction. Barakah saves you from fixing problems you never created. But if you mistreat the morning, you spend the rest of the day compensating. You push harder, you stress more, you force outcomes. And forcing is the opposite of barakah. The tragedy is that Allah gives this time freely. No one has to earn it. No one has to buy it. You are given it simply by waking up for Fajr. But a gift can be accepted or wasted. If you treat the first 30 minutes after Fajr like disposable time, you should not be surprised when the rest of the day feels disposable too. But if you treat it with care, something shifts quietly. Time stretches. Energy lasts. And what should have been heavy becomes manageable. Not because your life became easier, but because barakah stayed where it was welcomed. And barakah is very careful about where it stays. 4. What you turn to first trains your heart. What you turn to first after Fajr is not a small choice. It is not a neutral habit. It is training. Every morning, without realizing it, you are teaching your heart what matters most, what deserves urgency, and what can be postponed. The heart learns through repetition, not instruction. It does not listen to what you say you value. It absorbs what you rush toward. Many people believe their day is shaped by what happens to them. In reality, the day is shaped by what they orient themselves toward before anything happens. After Fajr, the heart is impressionable. It has just stood before Allah. It has just spoken words of surrender. It has just acknowledged dependence. In that moment, the heart is open like soft ground. Whatever you place on it first leaves a mark. If the first thing you turn to is your phone, your heart learns that interruption is normal. It learns that urgency comes from notifications. It learns that your attention belongs to whatever flashes the fastest. From that point on, the heart stays alert, restless and reactive. Even when nothing urgent is happening, the body remains tense because it was trained to expect demand. If the first thing you turn to is worry, your heart learns fear. It learns to anticipate loss before it arrives. It learns to scan the future for threats. That training does not disappear later in the day. It follows you into conversations, decisions, and work. You may not notice it consciously, but it shapes your tone, your patience, and your judgment. If the first thing you turn to is comparison, your heart learns dissatisfaction. It learns that your worth is measured by what others appear to have. Even blessings feel incomplete when comparison is the lens. From that moment, no amount of rizq feels enough because the heart was trained to look sideways instead of inward. But if the first thing you turn to is Allah, even briefly, the training is completely different. The heart learns trust before it learns pressure. It learns stability before it learns speed. It learns that its source is not the world, but the one who controls the world. That single lesson echoes quietly through the rest of the day. This does not require long acts or dramatic displays. Many people miss this because they assume spiritual benefit only comes from length and intensity. That assumption is wrong. What shapes the heart is not duration, it is priority. Even a few minutes of presence after Fajr can recalibrate the entire internal system. When you remain seated for a short while, remembering Allah, reflecting, or simply being still, you are telling your heart that it does not need to run. You are telling your nervous system that safety comes before performance. You are telling your soul that it is not late, that nothing essential has been missed, that the day can unfold without panic. This training produces visible results. Though most people never connect them back to the morning, decisions become calmer because the heart is not rushed. Speech becomes measured because the mind is not overstimulated. Reactions soften because the ego was not put in charge at the start. Even mistakes decrease, not because you became smarter, but because you became steadier. People often ask why they keep repeating the same errors, why they react in ways they later regret, why they feel hijacked by emotions they do not agree with. Very often, the answer is not found in the moment of failure. It is found hours earlier, in the first direction the heart was pointed. The heart does not reset itself automatically throughout the day. It carries momentum. If the momentum is anxiety, everything is filtered through anxiety. If the momentum is trust, even difficulty is processed differently. This is why two people can face the same problem and experience it in completely different ways. One feels crushed, the other feels tested but intact. After Fajr, Allah gives you a rare moment when momentum has not yet formed. That moment is a mercy. It allows you to choose the tone of your inner world before the outer world starts imposing one. When you skip that choice, you do not remain neutral. You simply allow the loudest influence to decide for you. Many people believe they will turn to Allah later when things calm down, but later rarely calms down. Later is filled with interruptions, responsibilities, and emotional residue. Later is when the heart is already trained for the day. That is why the early moment matters so much. It is not crowded yet. It is not contaminated yet. This is also why starting the day with Allah feels different from trying to insert Allah into a day that is already running. One is foundation, the other is patchwork. A foundation carries weight without strain. Patchwork constantly tears under pressure. When the heart is trained to begin with Allah, it does not mean the day becomes free of problems. It means problems do not define the heart. There is a difference. The heart still works, still strives, still engages, but it does so from a place of grounding rather than grasping. That difference determines whether effort feels meaningful or exhausting. Understand this clearly. Allah does not need your remembrance after Fajr. You do. Allah is not increased by your stillness. You are. Allah is not affected by what you turn to first. Your heart is. Every morning, you are either training your heart to be led by the world or anchoring it before the world arrives. That training compounds. Day after day, it becomes character. Character becomes destiny. If you want your days to feel less chaotic, do not start by changing your schedule. Start by changing your first orientation. Guard what you turn to immediately after Fajr, not because it looks religious, not because others will see it, but because your heart is watching and it is always learning. And whatever the heart learns first, it carries longest. 5 most blockages are not punishments. Many people carry a quiet fear inside them. When things feel tight, when progress slows, when effort does not produce the results they expected, they assume something is wrong with them in the eyes of Allah. They wonder whether they are being punished, ignored, or deprived. This assumption creates distance where none was intended. Most blockages are not punishments. They are patterns. Allah does not need to punish you to correct you. Very often, He simply allows you to experience the natural outcome of misalignment until you notice what is happening. This is not cruelty, it is mercy. A punishment breaks you, a pattern teaches you. When the day begins in agitation, the heart is already tense before life applies any pressure. From that state, everything feels heavier than it is. Small inconveniences feel like major obstacles. Normal delays feel like signs of failure. The problem is not the event itself, it is the internal condition that meets the event. Many people say, I work hard, but nothing opens. What they rarely examine is how they are arriving at their work each day. Are they arriving calm, grounded, and present? Or are they arriving mentally scattered, emotionally reactive, and already exhausted? Risk flows through the heart before it appears in the hands. When the heart is constricted, the flow narrows. This is why two people can be given the same opportunity and experience completely different outcomes. One benefits from it, grows through it, and feels supported. The other feels drained, pressured, and dissatisfied. The difference is not always the opportunity, it is the internal state that met it. Blockages often feel external, but they are frequently internal. When the mind is constantly jumping ahead, the present moment is never fully inhabited. When the heart is constantly worried about what might be lost, it cannot appreciate what is already present. Appreciation is not a luxury, it is a mechanism through which barakah stays. Many people ask Allah for ease while beginning their day in resistance. They ask for clarity while flooding the mind with noise. They ask for provision while training the heart to panic. There is a contradiction there, not in intention but in behavior. Allah is not offended by human weakness. He is not waiting to withhold blessings out of anger, but He has created the world with laws. When you work against those laws, things feel blocked. When you move with them, things feel guided. One of the most misunderstood laws is this: a heart under pressure cannot receive well. It can only grasp. Grasping leads to mistakes, overextension, and misjudgment. These mistakes then look like bad luck, but they are often the result of a rushed internal state. When you start the day without grounding yourself after Fajr, you carry sleep's residue into wakefulness and dunya's pressure into worship. There is no clear transition. The heart never fully arrives anywhere. It is half asleep spiritually and fully awake to stress. That condition creates leaks everywhere. Energy leaks into worry, focus leaks into distraction, motivation leaks into frustration. By the time an opportunity arrives, you are already depleted and you assume the opportunity itself is flawed. This is why many blockages persist even when circumstances improve. More money does not fix a constricted heart. More options do not fix a scattered mind. More activity does not fix misalignment. Without correction at the level of the heart, every gain feels temporary and every ease feels fragile. Allah often allows this discomfort not to punish you, but to invite you to pause, to reflect, to notice that something subtle needs adjustment. The invitation is not loud, it comes as repeated friction. The solution is not to do more, it is to align better. When the morning begins with stillness, remembrance, and presence, the heart enters the day open rather than armored. From that openness, interactions soften, timing improves. Choices become cleaner. Even when outcomes are delayed, patience feels possible. This is what people mean when they say, things didn't change, but I changed. That change is not psychological trickery. It is spiritual alignment correcting internal resistance. From that correction, blockages loosen naturally. Not every difficulty is a sign to stop, but persistent heaviness is often a sign to realign. The first place to look is not your workload or your goals. It is the way you are meeting the day. If you treat the most blessed time of the day as something to rush through, the rest of the day will mirror that haste back to you. If you honor that time, even briefly, the rest of the day carries less friction. Allah does not withhold risk to tease you. He withholds agitation's ability to control you when you align yourself properly. And when agitation loosens its grip, many things that felt blocked begin to move again. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily, quietly, and with barakah that lasts. Sick silence after Fajr is a form of worship. Silence is one of the most misunderstood concepts in modern life. Many people think silence is emptiness, wasted time, or inactivity. They associate value with constant output, speech, and motion. But in reality, silence is not absence, it is preparation. After Fajr, silence carries a unique weight. It is not the silence of isolation or laziness. It is the silence of a heart that has just stood before Allah and has not yet been pulled apart by the world. In that moment, silence becomes a form of worship even if no words are spoken. Worship is not limited to movement and sound. Worship is any state in which the heart is oriented correctly. When you sit quietly after Fajr, resisting the urge to immediately engage, you are choosing awareness over distraction. That choice itself is an act of submission. The world will speak to you all day. It will demand responses, opinions, explanations, and reactions. Every demand pulls a small amount of energy from you. By the end of the day, most people are not tired from work alone. They are tired from constant engagement. Silence after Fajr protects your energy before it is spent. It allows the heart to settle before it is asked to perform. This settling is not passive. It actively organizes your internal world. Thoughts slow down. Emotions find their place. The body exits the state of urgency. When the day begins without this settling, the nervous system remains alert as if danger is present. Even neutral situations are processed as threats. That constant alertness drains clarity and patience. People then assume they are weak, unmotivated, or spiritually failing, when in fact they are simply overstimulated. Silence resets this system. When you sit quietly after Fajr, you send a signal to your body and heart that nothing is chasing you. That signal is powerful. It reduces reactivity long before any challenge appears. Later, when something goes wrong, you find yourself responding rather than exploding, thinking rather than panicking. This is why silence has always been valued by the righteous, not because they avoided people, but because they understood the cost of unnecessary speech and noise. Every word you speak costs energy. Every argument drains attention. Every explanation fragments focus. Silence conserves what will be needed later. After Fajr, even a few minutes of silence strengthens your ability to carry the day without leaking yourself into it. You become less available to distraction and more available to intention. That shift alone can change how the entire day unfolds. Many people misunderstand this and think silence means doing nothing. In reality, silence is when the heart is doing its most important work. It is recalibrating. It is releasing tension. It is regaining its center. When you speak immediately after Fajr, when you scroll, argue or rush, you interrupt this process. You scatter the heart before it has finished gathering itself. Once scattered, it takes hours to reassemble, if it ever does. This is why silence after Fajr feels uncomfortable to some people. Discomfort often appears when a system is no longer numbed. Silence exposes the inner noise you have been carrying. That exposure is not a problem. It is the beginning of awareness. Many avoid silence because it confronts them with their own thoughts, but avoidance does not remove those thoughts. It only postpones their effect. When they surface later under stress, they are harder to manage. Silence gives those thoughts space to lose their grip. When acknowledged without engagement, they settle naturally. This is not psychology alone. It is how Allah created the heart to restore itself. Silence also trains humility. When you resist the urge to announce, explain or react, you are reminding the ego that it does not need to be in control. That humility protects you later in the day, especially in moments of conflict. This is why silence is connected to wisdom. A heart that has learned to be still does not rush to defend itself. It does not rush to prove itself. It does not rush to dominate conversations. It chooses words carefully because it is not desperate to be heard. Silence after Fajr also creates space for subtle guidance, not in the form of voices or dramatic signs, but in the form of clarity. You suddenly know what matters today and what does not. You sense where to apply energy and where to hold back. That clarity is a form of rik. Most people miss this because they fill the silence too quickly. They assume value must be visible to count. But some of the most valuable work Allah does in you happens when nothing seems to be happening. When you treat silence after Fajr as wasted time, you rush into noise and spend the rest of the day trying to recover what you never protected. When you honor that silence, you carry a steadiness that others notice but cannot explain. This is not withdrawal from life. It is preparation for life. Silence after Fajr is not meant to last all day. It is meant to set the tone. Once the tone is set, engagement becomes easier and cleaner. You speak with purpose instead of impulse. You act with intention instead of reaction. Allah does not ask you to escape the world. He asks you to enter it correctly. Silence after Fajr is how you do that. 7. Allah looks at what you do with the gift. Every morning Allah gives you a gift before you ask for anything. He gives you time. Not just any time, but time that is clean, quiet and undecided. Time that has not yet been claimed by people, problems or pressure. That time is not accidental, it is intentional. Most people treat that gift casually. They assume it will always be there. They assume tomorrow will offer the same window, the same clarity, the same softness of heart. But gifts lose their impact when they are taken for granted. What is familiar begins to feel ordinary, and what feels ordinary is easily wasted. Allah looks at what you do with the gift, not because He needs to observe you, but because your response to the gift reveals your priorities. How you treat something freely given shows what you value when there is no pressure forcing your hand. After Fajr, no one is demanding anything from you yet. There is no boss calling, no messages waiting urgently, no expectations being enforced. That is precisely why this moment matters. It is one of the few times in the day when your choices are not being dictated by necessity, they are being dictated by inclination. Do you incline toward remembrance or distraction? Toward stillness or noise? Toward presence or escape? These choices are quiet, but they are honest. Many people believe Allah judges only the big things, major sins, major acts of worship, visible actions, but the small repeated choices are often more revealing than dramatic moments. A heart that consistently rushes away from Allah when nothing is forced